Good evening, all. Hopefully, you can hear me all right. I'm still getting things a little bit set up on this end, but hopefully, I'm coming through okay. And I'm not doing that talking at the camera with no sound coming out. It doesn't seem to think so, so I guess I'm doing okay. Question mark. Let me know. Awesome. Good evening to Socially Confused, to Julio, to Zaveth, to Korogord. Good to see you, buddy. To Citizen Ninja, to Sol Galaxia. Good. I'm glad it's coming through all right. It's all downhill from here. I feel like we've peaked. That's it. It's all on the way down. Stevie Madman, good evening. I don't recognise the name. Apologies if we've seen you before, but if it's your first time here, then welcome. Welcome regardless. Wells, hello. Awesome. Good to see so many people in. That's great, because it means I'm not sat here talking to myself, which I feel like I do an awful lot. But first off, cheers to you all. Welcome into the stream. Sorry, YouTube, I'm drinking alcohol live on stream, and I don't care. This evening, I've sampled some of Brewdog's cold beer. That's literally what it's called, cold beer. So that's where we are. So cheers, happy Sunday, and all that sort of stuff, whatever time it is where you are. Good evening, Superstar and Drop Yogurt. Drop Yogurt kits us off with the 1,000-person server meshing test that happened on the tech preview branch, which we'll talk about as the thumbnail probably gave it away. We're going to talk about Pirate Week, we're going to talk about Blockade Runner, we're going to talk about Resource Network, but not too much, because I've got a video coming this week on that, or the coming week, on that very topic. Unfortunately, without going into too much detail, I received some bad news on Thursday morning, so unfortunately I was going to have a video up this weekend. I kind of wanted to have a video out every week, but unfortunately that's not happened this week. I had other things to attend to and some things to kind of deal with. So yeah, not the best end to the week, but we shall press on regardless, because Star Citizen will press on regardless, and there's, I feel like this week has been a bit understated in what's happened. There's a lot that's come out. I think that ISC that we saw, yeah, that needs some picking apart, because that's got some very big news in it. So that's great. But yeah, good to have you all here this evening. Let's kick off with, well, Dropped, you've chosen the topic, right? 1,000 players on a server. Craziness. So the PTU branch, the tech preview branch, they did this whole thing where they tried to get 1,000 players on the server. I think it was 6 servers running side by side to try and prove that it would work, that everything would happen. And it didn't. So the good news is they got the people on the server, as far as I'm aware. When they run this test, the downside is that they've identified kind of a lot of stuff. That means, as it stands, whatever they were testing, that kind of 6 servers splitting up standard, it works. People can go on. That's no problem. What they identified was basically a queuing issue. So everything that you do, obviously, in layman's speak, you click a button for a door. It sends a message off to the servers and says, this person wants to open the door, can we open it now? If you have a lot of people doing that, that stresses that system quite a bit. And that seems to be, yeah, that's exactly what happened, right? Is that the servers got incredibly stressed. There were long periods of times where people couldn't do anything. And that was that. The good news is having lots of players in one area doesn't seem to be a problem in and of itself, i.e. they're all there, they're all kind of running around, and up to about 100 players in New Babbage. That seemed to work fine. And then it got a bit rough. And it got a bit rough for a couple of reasons. Good evening, Ray. Good to see you, bud. It got a bit rough for a few reasons. One of the reasons it got rough was that, and it's something I've kind of noticed with Star Citizen, is they want to do high-fidelity models of everything. So you'll notice that your inventory is this really annoying kind of, like, everything's 3D modeled. And I don't know. I'll ask you guys, but it doesn't feel like it needs to be. It feels like it can just be, a normal inventory representation, like Tarkov, like anything like that. I'm quite happy with art images of what's in my inventory. It doesn't need to be a rendered 3D model. And the reason I say this, and it's kind of borne out with the server meshing test, is that simple things like the party name tag above everyone's heads seem to have a bit of an issue when you've got an awful lot of people in one group in one location. So, yeah, they've got a lot to work on. The good news is they know what the cause of it is, which is good. They're using that data to hone in. And, you know, I watched a couple of videos. I think the most standout one to me is Morph, because all of Morph's videos are great for scripting, great for production quality, great for getting the point across. But that was my thing with looking at that. That's the thing that I kind of wanted to talk about with you guys on this stream, is that the tech branch stuff was never supposed to work right. That's the alpha of the alpha. Like, we are in alphaception with that stuff. That is literally, we think it works with a few devs, let's stick 1,000 players on it and see what breaks. It's supposed to break. The whole point is that it gets them more data. So yeah, this is going to happen a few more times. What does that mean for when we're going to get Pyro and server meshing in 4.0? Your guess is as good as mine, right? Morph seems to think beginning of next year now, or sometime into next year. I gotta say, I'm beginning to think that that's the case. And there's a reason for that. If you've seen the roadmap roundup this week, the two types of caves, I think the acidic caves and the rock caves, have been brought forward to 324X. So yeah, 2 I think we're on now. It's been brought into that patch, is the next upcoming one. So it feels like they're trying to give us more in that patch, along with the 2 Zeuses, or 2 of the Zeuses. Yeah, it's looking a bit kind of rough at the moment. Good evening to Striker, to Black Cat, to Shinobi, Edison, Avi. Good to see you all, guys. Yeah, we're into the kind of 1,000-person server meshing stuff and talking about it. I didn't get the chance to play it on the tech preview, but yeah. It's just, there's a lot of versions you need. If you want to play everything on this, there's so many versions you need to keep live and current on your PC. There's the PTU, there's the PU, there's the tech preview. It's like 270 gigabytes of nonsense for one game, which is crazy, frankly. Yeah, Mark Hamill is going to look like the Emperor by the time we get to 4.0. Interesting. Which, you know, it should be Cavill, right? But yeah, I don't think you're wrong. Socially Confused says, I think they need to dumb down fidelity when you get far away and stream them out sooner. Certainly. There's a lot of clutter on the HUD still, I feel. Nova42, good to see you. But speaking of not meant to be perfect, the first time it's funny to see the refund sub whining about server meshing not being perfect out of the gate. Yeah, look, the refund sub's going to do what the refund subreddit always does, which is any excuse. It's the confirmation bias, right? Anything that they see that indicates that things aren't working, they told you, and then anything that indicates that things are working, they just ignore. Bless them. AV says, I think for a while I have 4 versions, and I was like, I'm going to need a new SSD. At least copy pasting did help with the download update speeds. 100%. And yeah, I'm gonna. There's another M.2 that will shortly be making its way into my computer to deal with the whole thing, because yeah, it's getting ridiculous. But I do feel like I need to, now that I'm coming back into the content creation and I'm more present here. Maybe I should be on all of these things, so I don't get to say, I don't play it, but here's my opinion anyway. Because that's what today is. So there. Yeah. So it's raised a whole bunch of interesting points, and I am just going to echo what Morph said here. One of the big things is the number of habs that we have isn't sufficient. They were finding that people were trying to get into the habs, and the Aspire Grand was filling up, and then everyone else is either getting stuck in an infinite loading loop. So they're going to have to bring online a lot more residential areas, and I think they are just now switching on to the fact that going into the MMO space is not just about them making server meshing work and the networking. That's a huge part of it. But that's not the only bit that they've got to do. What they've also got to do now is make the game reflective of an MMO. So we're going to need a lot more floors. It might be that for a while they get rid of this whole everything's, and Aspire Grand basically becomes an infinitely big accommodation block, and the only button on it is the lobby. So you can call it from your floor, but the only thing you can do is go down to the lobby. I don't have a problem with that. I think that might work. But yeah, they've got loads of stuff that, I've said when we looked at the persistent hangars, they need more hangars. They need more hangar entrances and exits at every single one of their locations. Every single one. So yeah, from the station to the major landing zones, everywhere is going to need more access. Especially while we only have things like Pyro and Stanton, because that's potentially a lot of players before we start getting new systems added. So yeah, that'll be an interesting one. Citizen Ninja says, I had a few 30Ks and one crashed to desktop on a 100-person server, but the game was somewhat playable aside from the crashes. Do you mean 1,000-person, Citizen? Is that... Sorry, I don't know whether I've read that wrong. But yes, player hubs, it might not be quite that just yet. I think they need to work out the fact of just having space first. But yeah, that's going to be the immediate challenge. Everything needs to get bigger. The beauty is, if you look at the size of any of the major landing zones, they built in so much space that these little, the metro rail in Lawville even has those stops that just go around. So I'm sure very soon, they'll start adding further locations out, and we'll be able to rent accommodation or buy a cab somewhere, and it'll all be to do with the quality of the accommodation that you have, and so on and so forth. So long term, this isn't going to be a problem. This is more a short term. There's a difference between opening up large parts of each of the major landing zones that they've done, and letting us have our own accommodation, bringing in player hubs, and getting it to just be able to support a lot of players in that big gap between server meshing coming in and player hubs, because that's where the problem is going to exist, in that space in between. But yeah, Sebastian, good evening, bud. Good to see you. They reduced the number of players down from 1,000 progressively down to 100 over the course of the test. Yes, so I understand. So yeah, I think it's really good that they were confident in it enough to give it to us and say, look, here you go, we need the data now. That kind of indicates that they've got things moving in the direction that they want, i.e. server meshing in theory works. What they need to do now is just brute force it with as many player tests as they can and use the data from that to refine the code so that it works in the way that we want it to. It is hard to see how they're going to deal with the number of requests that will be coming into servers, because everything with server meshing at the moment, they've got we got server meshing working and we can have all these servers. It's like, it's not just the game servers that need to be able to deal with that, it's every service that you have. And I feel like they figured that out with 3.18 when we made the shift to the replication layer and people couldn't get their ships out. And they had that, I think that was 3.18, right, where basically they crashed, they DDoSed their own server through the weight of requests, trying to figure out who owned what ship. So every time you went to the ASOP terminal, it just went, I don't know, because the server that was dealing with it. So every back-end service is going to have to sit alongside server meshing and deal with a much higher number of requests, because you're not dealing with one server now, you're dealing with multiple servers, all streaming the same game space. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge. This is a long road that they're going to be on, and I know it's been a long road already, but the end is definitely not in sight. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a rough one. Yeah, so yeah, play it till it breaks, and then once it breaks, they can go and fix it. Absolutely that. Right. In a moment, I shall take us over and we shall have a look at some of the Pirate Week stuff. Avi says, think for the hangar stuff, they could do a rework where they have a section or airport for the private hangars, one for public hangars, and then something for the personnel transport, but likely a while out. Yeah. I have a feeling, and I know this is going to upset people, so that there are multiple ways to deal with it, right? One of the things that they're going to have, if they don't manage the spaceport experience, if it becomes a pain in the ass to get to where you want to go by landing at the spaceport, you know what players are like. Players will just land wherever the hell they want. So players are going to land at the commons. Because I can pick my stuff up, I don't need to call up a hangar, I don't need to wait for a hangar to become available, I don't need to land it in that hangar. I don't need to then grab the transport all the way across. I don't need to buy it all. I don't need to go to my hangar and all that sort of stuff. I can go to the hub. And as long as what I need I can carry in my hands when I buy it in the shop, I can take it up to the ship, right? So yeah, because apparently that's something else that they've discovered in the tests, was that there was just so much rubbish, so many ships kind of lying around. It was a bit of a problem trying to get a place to land, some clear space to put vehicles in your ship, that sort of stuff. I have a feeling they might close the commons access because it doesn't exist anywhere else. So it might be that we lose that and they add garages to the spaceport. I mean, not that you really need it. Maybe they do something with the hangars where you can now put vehicles, big stuff into the hangar and then across, even the really big vehicles. We'll see. It works in the AeroView hangars. The self-land are a little bit tighter, so I'm not quite sure if it works there. But I haven't tested it. I've not driven a tank around my hangar yet. But yeah. Edison says, no idea what 318 did since it did not work for me. Yeah, so that's what I think 318, part of the problem was, obviously, when you go to the ASOP terminal speaks to the server that is linked to all our accounts and goes, what ships does this dude own again? And as well as the stuff you bought in game, it obviously looks at the ones you bought with for real money. And basically, they hadn't gone, oh, by the way, you're going to get inundated with. And that's why they implemented the quick fix of not putting all the ships at one place. You had to retrieve, because it was basically DDoSing their own server with the game, which is quite funny. Lol. Avi says, enforce time limits, towing on the commons pad. I mean, they do have public pads at the commons, don't they, behind the building? I don't know if they got pads. I know, I just land on the ice at the bottom of the ramp from the garage. So, but yeah, I think potentially closing that completely so that, it only makes sense to go to the spaceport. And obviously with TC, you'll do that. But then again, rooftop hangars or rooftop pads on top of people's buildings, that might work. So if you look at all the buildings in Lorville, you go to one of those hangars or one of those buildings, there might be a hangar on the top that just kind of takes you down and in or whatever. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like I said, the key part for me is that there's a lot now that they're going to have to prep for. Server meshing is a very large piece of the puzzle, but it is by far it's far from the only piece. And now they're going to have to start working on that. So yeah, interesting. Right, let's have a look at Pirate Week. So it's this one at the minute. Interesting. I think I can see my mouse now. Can you see my mouse? Can you see my mouse moving around? If you can, that's kind of cool because I can now point at stuff. But yeah, we got some new liveries, which I'm not going to lie, I kind of like. I've got a vulture, so I'm very tempted to get it for my vulture. I do quite like that. You might just have that as a bit of a target, I think. But yes. Good evening, Shadow Girl. What we need are a dozen new star systems and planets, and you are not wrong. Need the alcohol bottle for my hangar, says Striker. Avi says they don't work, the pads, but I thought they had two small pads behind one of the buildings by the vehicle bay. I don't know. I'll have to have a look the next time I'm down New Babbage Way. Thanks, Evis. Yeah, so new liveries. They're looking kind of cool. Like that. Love this kind of skull motif here. That's a little bit wicked. That's cool. And then you've got the screenshot. Freudian slip. I swore on YouTube. I'm now demonetized. Woo! A screenshot. That's a better way of putting it. Contest. So, you know, if you want into that, that's great. I don't know what the prizes are. I haven't looked on Spectrum, but I'm sure it'll be free ships. There is still, as always, the competition that you complete Pirate Swarm, and then you will get the right to buy the pirate themed Caterpillar and the Gladius. Yeah. Anyone have them? Anyone really like them? Have they flown them? Are the skins on them yet? Like, how are you finding them if you have them? I know they're identical other than the skin, but yeah. And then we have the Blockade. I'm more upset that they don't sell pirate crates separate, only in the £600. There's pirate crates? I shall have a look. That's kind of what are they like pirate chests? Are they? Is it in this one? Also includes. Oh, salvage skulls containers. Interesting. Pictures? Question mark. Apparently not. Yeah, I'm a little bit gutted that it's like it's not an actual pirate chest, that it doesn't look like something straight out of Sea of Thieves. But you know, whatever. Yeah, and then so 2 parts on this. You got Run the Blockade, which is the dynamic event, which is currently on, and the X marks the spot, kind of mini in-game event. The mini in-game event puzzles me, not the event itself, people's approach to it. Okay, because we whinge that we want events to be more than just a an excuse for CIG to sell ships. And then we get one, and all I see is everyone copy the code and then say, well, I'm not doing that for something. And it's like, well, I mean, pick one. Like, you either want them to put stuff in the game for you to do or you don't. But yeah, so I'm going to go and give it a go. And maybe I'll even make a video out of it. That'll be fun, won't it? But yeah, and then Blockade Runner. So we had, this reminds me, the first of our returning Friday Night Ops series on Friday nights, which all you got to do is be in the Discord as a community member. You don't need to do anything to be a community member, you just join. And basically when you join, links in the fold, you know where it is. You know where it is. I don't need to tell you that. You know where it is. Every Friday, 9 p.m. UK time, we get together, we have fun, we get a little bit drunk, we do some Star Citizen stuff, and I intend to have that running now as a series. So if you look at Discord events, there will be one in there. I'm going to put one up straight after the stream. Yes, exactly that. Drinking is not required, but encouraged. Yeah, absolutely. And then we will go and do something. We tried Blockade Runner, and if you're not sure, if you're not aware, the storyline behind Blockade Runner is one of the stations, one of the LEO stations, gets attacked by a group of pirates. They steal a whole bunch of Zeta Prolonoid, 1,000 SCU worth, and you've got to go and find the ships that have stolen it because they're already running. So we are basically the blockade. They are trying to run, and we've got to intercept them. And the whole thing is based around you soft-deathing the cargo ship, defeating the escorts, and then getting to the point where you can, you know, get across, tractor beam all the cargo out, get it onto your own ships, take it back, and then land it. And there is a constant stream of pirates at that station as well, so you've got to brave that coming back through. I guess that's the other part of the Blockade Runner, is they're trying to stop you coming back in, so it's a blockade both ways. It's actually quite good fun, and they kind of focused it around the Xeno threat, watching everyone work together when they had to go to the supply ships and get the stuff off, which is kind of cool, but also kind of disappointing. And I'll back that up before anyone gets angry at me, is that you've seen us do that and enjoy it. So find us other things to do. Instead of just going, oh, we'll just take that and replicate it in its own event, find us something else to do. But anyway, yeah. So we had a go at that. There were three types of locations you could go to: small, medium, and large. The smalls seemed to be kind of like something like a freelancer or something fairly small like that. The mediums went up to, I can't remember what were the mediums, and then up to the larger things like caterpillars and that sort of stuff. The problem was that, well, we had a bunch of problems. The first one was that the caterpillars and the connies never seemed to have anything in them, which is annoying. Um, we also had a problem where you would get part way through it and you'd go across to soft death or whatever, and all of the ships and all of the wrecks would just suddenly disappear. They'd all be gone. Like the server had gone, oh, we don't need any of this, and they just got wiped, which is really annoying. And the other thing, and I know this is a gameplay loop, it's just frustrating. People were coming and then destroying the soft death transports, either because they didn't understand that because it had no pirate name, just the serial number, the crew were dead, and it was soft death, or because they were intentionally trying to muck things up for someone else. And so we ended up engaging a guy called Solo 116 Russ, who was doing that, and Edison and I chased him off and slapped him around, which was quite funny because I was in a Gladiator and he was in a Hornet Mark II, and I shouldn't have won that fight, even with Edison's help. But Edison was yeeting torpedoes at him in a hammerhead. I was slapping him around a bit with my repeaters, and yeah, boom, lol. So yeah, so there's that. On the actual store page, I think it does have the pictures. We'll have a look in a second, Amy. I shall have a look. But yeah. Agree it was a decent start, says AV. Kind of wish it had been an in-game mission or something, though. Yeah, I feel like there's kind of a lot more they could have done with this. Or they could have, again, made it a little bit more PvP focused, potentially, given the blockade side of things. So they could have made it that. So, not so much... If you're lawful, what they could have done was given lawful players the positions of the ships they needed to go and take stuff from. Or, ships of hostile players that were trying to transport stuff out. And then, the flip side, as we took it back to the station, they could have put markers on the ships that were transporting the Zeta Prononoid. But yeah, I mean, it's fine. Whatever. The point is, the moment it doesn't work, but there was a lot of fun in flying it. There was lots of fun in working together and engaging the bad guys and that sort of stuff. And then calling in the transport. Almost precisely what I talked about when I did the Fleet Builders video, which was you go and engage, you call the transport in afterwards, and then you all go back as one group and get the transport landed. That was exactly how it worked, and it was a lot of fun. So yeah, make sure you're in the Discord. If you don't have the community member tab, you will have when I finish the stream, because I'll go and add anyone that's joined. And then just keep an eye out for the event. If there's not going to be one, there won't be an event in Discord. Other than that, I'll have one up and we can just keep playing, which will be cool. So yeah, I think this is the kind of coin basically that you get for handing the code in. Is that right? I haven't handed it in yet because, like I said, I haven't done it. But yeah. Yes, Shadow Girl streamed it. I'll go and have a look on Twitch now and see if I can find your stream address. But Shadow Girl's just picked up streaming on Twitch. She is streaming. I don't think she's kind of got a timetable down yet, but I will link that. So if anyone wants to get involved and go and support her on a stream, then please do so. I'm sure she'll. I'm trying to find it now. I'm scanning through and I can't see it. But is there a search function? No, of course they're not. Why would there be a search function? That's silly. Where are you? There you are. I found you. Copy link address. Cool. So I'll pop that in so everyone can see that if you want to. Dink. There we go. Ape. Hello, bud. Good to see you, mate. Cheers. Good to have you on stream. So yeah, and then the obviously you've got a couple of ships available extra through this, and then your upgrades. Three solid choices as far as I'm concerned. The Scorpius, solid choice for heavy fighter. Mantis, obviously, it's the only ship with the enforcement device, I think, at the minute. The one that forces people out of Quantum. It's Quantum Snare. And then the Quantum Dampener, obviously, had by a couple of other ships as well, which stops people spooling up their drives. But the Mantis at the moment, the only one. And with that skin, might look quite sweet. Stops it being white, stops it being that massive standout target. And yeah, the Mercury Star Runner, another solid choice. I do miss my Scorpius, says Striker. Gonna get it back one day. Yeah, it's on one of my CCU chains, I think. I've got a CCU train heading up to, well, it was heading up to the Reclaimer. God knows what it's heading up to now. But yeah, so I had that. I had the Scorpius as part of that. So yeah, maybe I'll stop off. I am feeling at the moment. So my fleet at the moment, I'm feeling a lack of combat. I have the Gladiator because I've got the Perseus, and it's one of the loaners for the Perseus. But other than that, I mean, I've got a Retaliator, so I've got the big stuff. And then I've got an Arrow, because reasons. But other than that, I'm feeling like there's a little bit of a lack of a punch. I used to have a Saber, which was really good in that department. But at the moment, I'm feeling like I kind of want one, but then there's nothing I really want to give up for it that's close enough to make it a small investment. I got loads of stuff that's LTI tokens, basically, that would require a sizable investment to get it anywhere near the Scorpius or anything like that. But we'll see. Nova42 says, why is the chain not going to or through the Reclaimer anymore? Okay, cool. Good question. Edison, Ice, Can, you are up, guys. So I've wanted the Reclaimer pretty much since the first time I set foot on it. I can see it being kind of my day job as like a long-range salvage crew. Really like that idea. The only reason I don't go through that or to that anymore is because I got one as a birthday present. So yeah, people got together with Can and Edison got together with a very nice, I'm hoping a very nice CCU chain, so it didn't cost them an arm and a leg. But yes, what was quite funny, I was out on my birthday, and I got a message from Can going, "Hi, just sent you something. Check your email." So I checked my email, and of course, it only tells you when you've been gifted it on the gift link what the base pledge was. It was like, "Hi, you've got a hover quad." I was like, "Oh, great! The guys have got me like a hover quad. It's an LTI token. It's a base. Lovely." I was like, "Thank you ever so much for that." Continued drinking, thought nothing of it. This was on the Wednesday. On the Friday, Can's like, "You're right." I was like, "Yep." He's like, "Have you looked at that pledge?" I was like, "Oh yeah, the hover quad. Thanks very much." So no, have you looked at it? I was like, "What did you do?" Went to my email. Of course, then I opened it up and saw what was in it. And yeah, suddenly, somewhere in the room, someone started cutting onions, and like my eyes started leaking water. It was very strange, but yes. So that's that. And surprise, it's a sheep. Funny enough, Matthew's here. The conversation will now feature sheep periodically. But yes, thank you very much. So Shadow Girl has just sent me. Yep, visit. I'm hoping, of course, it didn't send to that one. So it's going to be this one instead. Ta-da! There you go. So there's the image of some of these paints. Very, very cool. Better like this, because I didn't realise it had the kind of purple banding on it. Like this stuff here, so that's kind of cool. And also these skull crates. Yeah. I really like that, but I'm not paying £600 for 4 crates with the skull logo on it. So that's not happening, just so we're aware. But thank you very much, Shadow Girl. It's very much appreciated. But yeah, the M50 does look good. They all look good. Yeah, I like that on all of them. It's definitely... I don't want to... Got to stop buying things for a Star Citizen. But not today. Today I will be getting the skull paint for the Vulture. God damn it. The placement on the Scorpius is odd. Yeah. I mean, I guess they kind of didn't really... Although I do feel like they could have inverted it. Maybe. Or maybe move it over the top of the cockpit so the cockpit's still clear. But yeah, it is a bit bizarre. Nova, yeah, 100%. Yeah, so it had nothing to do with the gameplay loop. I still like the gameplay loop. I think that's only going to get better as we get into looting things like components and weapons and, you know, that becoming more viable than it is at the minute. So yeah, I really like the idea because it almost needs one or two more crew to do everything all at once, because you've got the pilot, you've got the claw operator, you've got the two salvage operators, you've got the drone operator, you've got people could potentially go across and start detaching stuff. You know, you've got the person down the back moving stuff around. But what I really like is because there's always more tasks than there are people, you know, you can alternate round a lot. So it's not just a case of, you know, I'm going to fly, you're going to claw operate. It's like, yeah, I'm done with the claw. Oh, yeah, I'll claw. You can come back and do the UAV stuff. And yeah, you know, or yeah, I'm just going to sling boxes around the cargo holds for a while. I really like that you've got that ability to switch around and just vary the gameplay within the loop. I think that's really cool. And that's what attracted me to the Reclaimer. That and the fact that the interior does look like a complete alien set ripoff, because that's what it is. Yeah, it's a great ship. Don't forget, you got to go onto the salvage ship to drain fuels, equipment, etc. Yeah, exactly that, Matthew. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Joe, don't like the skull motif, so that's a shame. I think they're quite cool. They could have been possibly a little bit more Punisher, but then maybe that would have been like a trademark infringement or something. But yeah. So she concludes, says the Reclaimer's salvage operator ships also need turret access so all can be manned. Seats, I guess you mean there. Yeah, like a mode to switch between the two. I'd agree with that. Yeah. I can get a CCU'd Odyssey and Liberator for the same $600 with LTI, says Zavith. Yeah, but four container boxes with skulls. Totally worth the $600. No, no, I don't believe it either. Just so we're aware. How dare you, sir? How dare you? How very dare you? Sorry, I'm just moving everything around because I've clicked on Discord and now I can't see any of my controls. But yeah, so that's an interesting kind of setup there. Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of good that they've got the old paints there. So if you want to go back and get the classic pirate paints, you can do. I mean, I'm just going to put this thing in my buyback, right? I'm not going to keep hold of it. It's just going to go in my buyback, and that's going to be it. But yeah, that's it. Open Spaces. I can't wait to CRG figures out they can take the tattoos and make them graffiti for ships. Maybe another year or two. Yeah, absolutely. Although, as long as they stay away from people putting their own images in the game, because that's just... What was it? How many seconds after hull scraping did we have our first swastika on a ship? Like, let's not, and say we didn't. I do like the silver of the Meridian paints, though. Yeah, there's some quite nice ones in there. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, we've kind of covered Blockade Runner as well already, right? Because I've spoilt this as at a start. It's going to be a lot of fun when it works properly. And but do you know what? That's Star Citizen's motto right there. A lot of fun when it works properly. But yeah, it has been good fun. It's just been a bit rough, and there is nothing quite like. I mean, I think we had a point where, you know, it took us ages, as it always does, to get a bunch of people together. We all get together at Everest Harbour because it's, you know, short hops to everywhere. And by the time you've achieved that and got everyone together, and people have got like all of their combat kit into their ship, taken it to Everest, transferred it into the station, gone and transferred their imprint, you are talking an hour to 90 minutes. And then to suddenly have, oh yeah, by the way, you know, you none of the ships have got any cargo in them anymore, so now you need to server hop, is incredibly frustrating. It's rough, but we do whatever. Sometimes we go and just do bunkers. Sometimes we'll go and fly other combat stuff. Sometimes we'll just go and see if we can do an adventure. We've done salvaging trips before on the Friday night ops. So yeah, it's definitely worth coming in and having a go if you want. And we can go and do pretty much anything. A couple of fully crewed hammerheads might be quite good fun. Although we'll need to split voice chat for that because that's going to get crazy. But yeah, please tell me you've seen the whole D on the HUD. Are you just being rude again? Is that what's going on? Because I think I know what you mean, but no, stop it. Even if you know basic shapes, people will get creative. Yeah, 100%. Yes, would not need to allow any over up. 100%. Tier 0, hello, bud. Shuffles in quietly just in time for yeah. Yes, sorry, buddy. That was a bad. Like, go make yourself coffee, go grab a beer, whatever it is you do. Give it 5 minutes and come back, all right? Because I just need to drink through this stage. That's generally how this works. But yeah, yeah. Initially, I thought Blockade Runner was another concept ship. Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Because obviously this was the Nine Tails lockdown as was, and it got redone for something else entirely. But yeah, it's there's definitely something here, but they're not there yet. So there's definitely a fun event here which could be noticeably different from Xenothreat. We've just not arrived at that point. They've got some work to do. Yeah. So yeah, yes, Matthew's here. I need to drink just to manage. But yeah, so hostiles have created a blockade in an attempt to recover the Zeta Prime node and put down the CDF's initiative. Yeah, but we're trying to stop them from escaping, so that's also a blockade, right? So go figure. Also, it seems like the biggest amount we were able to get out was maybe 55 SCU at a time. So that if there's only one or two groups working on that as an event, that's going to be quite tight. There doesn't seem to be a timer that's visible, but it is on a timer. It does count down, and you can fail it. So that's a bit rough. Yeah, and again, Connie Andromeda, interesting, because that thing's a bit of a beast at the minute. But yeah, Matthew says, kind of wish they do events like in Guild Wars, which meant there's a constant push-pull. If you defend things, then you get access to, say, the station. If you fail, that shops, etc., aren't there. Yeah, I think potentially that's something we're going to see, even if it's just in certain systems. In the wider verse, I think Stanton's just too small to be ruling people out of stations, especially low Earth orbit stations. Do you still call them low Earth orbit, low planetary orbit, LPO? Yeah, LAO, low atmosphere orbit. Whatever. But that. So yeah, it's certainly something that can go on to, and I think you're likely to see later on in the down the line. We'll see things like, systems that are where there is no rule of law and they're designed to be battlegrounds for like org versus org, and there'll be things to hold and bonuses for doing so and that sort of stuff. Think of like an org level jump town, right? Where people can act out their blockades, and it can be done in an area where orgs can fight without fear of getting crime stat, but also, it doesn't spread to every single system and impact everyone's gameplay loop, because that wouldn't be great either. Tier 0 says, yeah, Elite Dangerous had an event like that. Build a new part of a station and it'll sell better stuff. Interesting. Yeah, LPO says Zavith. Yeah, that's where I was going with that, I think. So yeah, AV says, I mean, they did kind of talk about that kind of thing indirectly with some of the Quanta stuff, where certain situations would trigger events and it would affect the system things. Yeah, so that'll be the interesting thing about quantum or the quantum economic simulator, right? which the game will track like instances of piracy and all that sort of stuff. So if you get a certain frequency of piracy in an area, that will trigger a dynamic event. And that's the whole plan. This is the systems that they're building on to layer on top of each other. So at the moment, they are triggering the events like Siege, like Xeno Threat, like Blockade Runner, like Jumptown. They're triggering those manually for fun. So we've got like a weekend to come and play, and they get to sell ships and all that sort of stuff. What will then happen is that they will these things will be built into Quanta. So Quanta will be able to trigger. People will, the devs can still trigger stuff. It'll almost be like the last game or the last Games Master that they use in Helldivers, where they've got someone monitoring the state of the verse, which is very possible when you consider how spread out they are from, West Coast US through to Germany. You can have someone almost constantly monitoring the verse and okay, well, there's not been a lot going on, so let's trigger a dynamic event. Or, all right, that dynamics event's been has happened there like 3 times in the last week. Let's increase the threshold so that it's just a normal high piracy area. It doesn't trigger a dynamic event every couple of days. So that'll be kind of cool. But yeah, so there's all that sort of stuff where Quanta's going to be able to do a lot of that, and of course, it's also going to be tracking what goods are going where. So sometimes you go to a station and it's not going to be able to supply you with what you want. Again, that may trigger a call for assistance if it's things like fuel or medical supplies or food or whatever. So there's going to be lots of that to respond to. And that, of course, doesn't need to be combat based at all, right? That the medical supplies could be something along the lines of like a planet wide plague or something. I don't want to use the other P word because I think we've all had enough of that round about now, right? But it can do that sort of stuff, so that'll be kind of cool. Shadowgo reminds me of something kind of cool. If you go now into the underground facilities, thanks Shadowgo for reminding me. There are microscopes on the drug tables. They're interactable. They don't do anything, but there's a use prompt on them, which is kind of cool. It might mean that there's something for us. It might be that they've been activated for like a new AI behavior, and that CIG have just missed it, and that they, that because it's been activated for the AI, we can see that but can't do anything with it. But yeah, something's happened with the microscopes, so that's kind of cool. I haven't tested it at like the mining stations and that sort of location, but certainly in the UGFs, it works. So yeah, that's cool. Matthew says, also another cool thing, if an org was the primary support and paid for the repairs, they get a cut of the profits. Interesting. Semi-owned the station or base. Well, the interesting thing about that, of course, is that at the end of CitizenCon, when they started talking about beast building, they did say, quote unquote, that they are actively investigating other types of ownership, not just planetary section base ownership. So they very heavily hinted that they are looking at the ability to own / put up stations. So that'll be cool. And of course, that's going to be something like in Eve, a single player is never going to have a hope in hell of achieving that. That's going to be org level stuff, and so it should be. If every single player that went into Star Citizen could put a space station up, that would just be a nightmare. Avi says, I don't know if they will, but I know they suffered the building in space from no building to their examining options. Yeah, as we just said. Might be Copium, asteroid-based building. Asteroid base is coming with 4.0, right? These are new PvP arenas. We'll have to see what comes from that. That'll be cool. I don't know if they'll let players control NPC stations, says AB. Yeah, I think that's going to be it, right? There's no hope that we're ever going to own Bajini Point, Everest Harbour, Port Tressler, Seraphim. Those things are going to remain AI owned. But then, well, there might be like in Star Trek, there's the neutral zone, right? there might be something like that where a station is constantly changing hands. They talked about something like that with like the idea of a Bengal, is that yes, players will be able to use it in the game, but rather than being something you own, even if you, because you're going to have to find it either on an asteroid or find it on a planet, repair it, bring it back to itself, get it up in the air again. That something like that would be like a weekly event, so you would own it for the week, and then for a set period over the weekend, it would be a dynamic event all by itself. People will be able to go there, try and take it over, and then once you've taken it over, there'll be a lockout period where it is now yours. And then again, it becomes the location of it becomes known, and everyone fights over it. And they could absolutely do that with stations too. That'd be really cool. Tier Zero says, yeah, you're right. They went from no player space build to the Pioneer can do it. Yeah, interesting, right? Yeah. Starship lease ownership with 0% APR for the first year, says Shadow Girl. That's worrying. Honestly, I'd be up for owning actual NPC zones, but more so you get your own name on it for a while and a cut of the org's profits. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. It's too open to abuse. People break that, right? Because one of the things that they've said, and they reiterated recently, was, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to kill someone. They'll just go on the station and kill everybody. Why wouldn't you? Right? People will troll the hell out of that if they wanted to. We forget that with things like that, that's great when someone's got reasonable intentions, and then enter stage left goon swarm, and yeah, good luck with that. They take over every station in the system and kill everybody, and now you can't buy anything. It doesn't work. It cripples the economy too much. Avi says, for the leasing, if we're being honest, a lot of us have more ships than we'd ever be able to use reasonably, so being able to lease rent them out would be a nice feature. Yeah. I think org ownership, so Eve does this already, right? So there's already a template for this, but they have org hangers where you can put stuff in, and, with your insurance, you'd never lose it per se. But you can rent that out to org, and maybe some sort of remote way of always knowing where that ship is, so you don't just lend it to an org mate and then go, haha, insurance claim. You'll always know where that is, and at any point you can kind of, when it's not being occupied, you can lock it out and go and get it back. Something like that. That would work, I guess. Yeah. And then very quickly, the roadmap roundup came out middle of the week. Yeah, not huge amounts on this. The Atlas we obviously already knew about because they were already selling it by the time this came out. But the 2 caves that are in there and the MFD rework and new displays. Yeah, MFDs are looking good. They're not a bad kind of. They look like the sort of thing that would fit in a spaceship that would sit on those MFD displays. I'm not, upset with the way they look. So that's kind of cool. Yeah. Let's have a look. I'm just going to see if I can get to that very quickly so we can talk a little bit about it. I need to mute the audio before we get there. Zoo stuff. Here we go. So yeah, I'm just going to put it up in the background while we talk. There's that. There we go. Trying to get all my screens back to normal. Yeah, so not bad looking at all. They do just look like different colour palettes at the moment. So the Drake and the Aegis and all that sort of stuff, they all look to be the same screens, just with a different colour palette over the top. But, I guess it was too much to expect everything to be ready all at once, right? But yeah, not a bad setup. They certainly look a lot better than what we've had. They look a lot clearer. They actually look readable. I don't need to be looking at them. If they can just figure out this, after you fly a while, your view seems to constantly zoom in, and all of a sudden you can't see half of the MFDs that you have. If they could stop that from happening, that would be really useful. But I guess we can't have everything all at once, question mark. But yeah, Sean, good to see you, my friend. Welcome in. But yeah, not a bad looking set of displays. And of course, this looks a lot more similar to the engineering displays that we saw demoed this week on ISC, they're looking pretty good as well. So yeah, you're not supposed to hear that, by the way, if anyone's wondering why it's mute. I just thought I'd put it up for some eye candy while we're talking. But yeah, just set all the zoom and head check to 0. Interesting. I'll have a go with that because, yeah. I do kind of like the idea that you lean into the turn, so I don't necessarily want to lose that. But yeah, the rest of it is a bit of a pain in the backside. I have noticed now that a lot more of the what are the words I'm looking for? A lot more of the switches on some of the panels. So we were flying the Hercules a little while ago. They've now got switches for lights and the spoiling the quantum drive and all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of cool to see everything begin to get physicalized. It just, if you look at the flight controls of a normal like aircraft, everything looks different. Where this is just a nondescript set of dials. There's one type of dial, there's one type of push button, there's one type of analog switch, and it's like they need to be more obvious from just a flight safety perspective, because then you can identify things very quickly if you're in an emergency and you're frantically trying to click stuff. That's not to say they need to take keyboard control away from people. That's just to say that it would be cool to look at different controls and watch that happen. Nova42 says, I guess CIG does want some continuity between manufacturers so you can fly different manufacturers without knowing what anything is on the MFDs. Yeah, 100%. And I am not necessarily suggesting changing the layout too much. I mean, I guess I don't know what I am suggesting, right? But maybe, not all the same font. Maybe not, very much like the shop kiosks are at the minute. So when you go to the Grimhex shop kiosks, that's the Drake one, right? And then Kelto is the, I don't know, Argo one. And then the pharmacy ones are the Origin ones. So something like that. Everything's laid out in a very similar pattern, but they end up being, oh, what a shot that was. The flying across the water. That was very cool. But yeah. So it's cool. And that is a very good point to start talking about resource network. I think that's a good place to start talking about that. Like I said, I'm not going to do too much into this because it's one of those things that I'm putting together a video. I'm scripting that as we speak. So I don't want to go too far into some of my thoughts, but the one thing I do want to say is that I thought the video was really positive, and for me, it's a really good example of what they've been talking about. They've been saying for ages, haven't they? Right, about we're just building the systems, we're building the blocks, and we're building the systems that enable us to do these later things. And then you've got the community going, CIG bug fix this, CIG balance that, blah 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 blah. And this is a really good example of why maybe they ignore us. Is there anything that they could have changed up until now with all the components and stuff has just been invalidated because the system's been replaced? And of course they've got to strike a balance. Of course they can't leave things horrendously unbalanced or horrendously unfun for too long. Arguably, they have, but you know what I mean, right? But they do need to, at some point, kind of just go, do you know what? We need to leave that in the state it is because it's about to be replaced. And this absolutely is the building blocks. Because not only are we going to get, with this, power plants, the coolers, the relays, the shield generators, the weapon systems, the thrusters, the radars, the life support generators. Not only is that going to come with this iteration where they are actually usable and they're actually going to start to matter internally, as well as how fast is your quantum drive, how economic is your quantum drive, and start outputting heat that's going to make your coolers matter more and stuff like that. You can also see the building blocks. So the computers, when they come in, if anyone remembers, there are computer slots on the Reclaimer. There's the computer slot in the cockpit of the Carrack. You've got all of those things that are going to be added as well, and they're going to start to change things. You've got like the huge scanning and map room, which may need a component. And not only is this for ships, it's also for vehicles. It's also for anything else that uses resource. So all of a sudden you see the distribution centers in a new light. Because now, if you go to a distribution center and you want to have a friendly ship land, but the distribution center itself is hostile, go find the radar and disable it. Because without radar, turrets can't track. They can't identify incoming, so the turrets can't do anything. You take the power away from it. You can do all sorts of fun stuff with this. They could do so much with having this in everywhere. And we already know that the plan is that they're going to do this with bases. So you're going to need to, build a power generator with a base, and you're going to need to put in hubs. And if you want medical facilities, you're going to need medical things, shield generators, anti-air defenses, anti-ground defenses, hubs, all that sort of stuff are obviously also going to be built by your own bespoke resource network, because that power is going to need to clip to other things, which is really cool. Because now you've got every fantasy you've had of ever being a special forces team going in, isolating the power, and wiping everyone out while they sleep is now possible under this regime, right? Their communications. What if you knock it out? Be kind of cool, right? Their ability to track stuff, all that. So there is so much that's going to be built on the resource network that it goes far and away from ships. But it is nice to see them finally bring this to the verse. There are a couple of questionable decisions in there, but there always will be. But, I just think for this, we need to wait until it's in to give it a go. There are noticeable changes between this and Arena Commander. The key one that stands out for me is that you can repair stuff from 0 in this. You cannot repair it from 0 in Arena Commander, if I'm right. So yeah. Blamsmith, good to see you, buddy. Welcome in. So yeah, that's interesting. Since the triangle is out, they have the new power splitter. They really do. So I'm just going to see if I can... I don't know if I want to boot it up, because it means loading up Steam. But it's very similar to the FTL, Faster Than Light, game system that they have, if anyone's seen that. If you haven't, I can load it up. I think I've still got it installed. Yes, I have. Cool. So yeah, but the power distribution system is almost identical. So yeah, very, very similar. But you are right, AV, in that the triangle is out. The other thing that's worth noticing from that is the fact that the power plants don't seem to be able to power everything all at once. So now we've got an extra thing. It's not just about power plant efficiency and size, it's also about its output, maximum output, because it doesn't look like it's intended for you to be able to have all power to all things all of the time. You're going to have to make decisions, which is great, but it also means that it feels a little bit more meaningful than just, having a random allocation of 34%. Like, what's the difference between 34% and 48% other than the number? Because some smartass will write that in chat. But yeah, so we shall see. I'm just going to see if I can options, go full screen it, full screen on, close. There we go. So yeah, so we'll just jump over very quickly and I'll show you what I mean. No, we won't, because apparently I can't have that. There we go. Is that not going to show? Really? There we go. Ta-da! Okay. So yeah, I got you, Zaveth. Mate, I got your number. So yeah, so this is the power allocation system, which in the bottom left, I'm glad you can see the mouse now, because this makes this so much easier. But you can see here that I can basically allocate power to weapons. So I take power away from the laser, I take power away from the whole laser. This gives me the power. I can then put that back here, I can put that here, but I can't charge everything all at once. and then as you go through, you can upgrade things and whatever else. Now, I'm obviously not expecting it to be this damn simple, but it's a very similar system. They do look kind of the same. Avi says, seeing that power is more like how Starfield had it, where you assign power bars, but it did have 3 presets or something, so it still could be quick enough. The presets is a really nice thing, I think, because, sure, it only works on a ship that's identical to the setup that you have, but then again, that makes sense, right? Because if you go from a freelance to a hammerhead and go, why is my preset not working? Well, maybe because it's a completely different ship. But I do kind of like this design, because those presets, if you don't have one, calls red alert. Like, are you even playing a space game? Or for me, it'll be action stations, right? But yeah, you've got to have something like that, and it's gonna be great because it'll just allow you to go change the power levels. You can have normal cruising mode, which is minimal power, one chain of relays to power the necessary things, everything on minimum. Then you've got, I don't like where we're going. Maybe we should, like they say, get power to the coolers, so everything starts off cool. So you've got the maximum amount of headroom to generate heat before you start getting to overheating, and then you go to the holy shit battle stations sort of thing. So yeah, it's quite a nice little setup. Yeah, I see that the triangle is out. I just hope we can still manage some systems, like with the triangle, while keeping our eyes on the dogfight. Yeah, I think that's where the presets are going to come in useful, because hopefully you'll be able to bind them to hotkeys, so you can just and do that sort of stuff. That'll be really cool. Having like the full flight setup. The more I play this, the more I think. See, this is the problem with being single, right? The great thing about being single is that I can go, I want to build a full cockpit in the spare room for me to play Star Citizen, and there's no one to tell me no. The downside of being single is that I can say, I want to build a full cockpit simpit in the spare bedroom, and there's no one to tell me no. Right? Also, not strictly single, but we're not talking about that, so that's fine. So yeah, but the point of living alone is what I was getting at, right? So yeah, there's that. But having all those buttons and just being able to bind it to a button or a dial and be able to go, instead of hotkeying, just go click, click, into different power settings would be great, right? While you're flying, you're on your dual stick setup and you just click, click, and back you go. That would be great. Agreed. Yeah. So let's transition back. Why not? And then I can get rid of that off my screen. So yeah, with engineering, I do wonder if the Endeavour Master Set is worth getting. I mean, yeah, I don't see that as massively being affected by engineering. It's more going to be the science thing, I guess, for the Master Set. But, like, I've seen the size of your fleet, you addict. Get some help. But, like, just as you said to me, if I tell you no, is it actually going to work? Yeah. So, Shadowgirl says, also remember that eventually we'll be able to open things like the generator and install rare components onto them. So, yeah, I think one of the things that I kind of... They were talking about problem solving, right? So when a situation... do you know what? I'm just going to go and change onto the other... I'm going to change onto the other screen and get the video up so we can look at what I'm talking about as we're talking. But one of the things that I thought was really quite cool was they talked about the idea of problem solving. When you have alerts, they want us to be able to go in and see from the engineering console that something's wrong. It will give you an indication of what it is, and then you go there. And the reason I quite like that is because it doesn't need to necessarily tell you that everything's broken. It can, or what the cause is. It can just tell you to go and look, and that would be really cool because it enables some sort of manual problem solving. You know how everyone whinges with engineering? Oh, it's just more Beam Citizen. Oh, I was hoping for it to be more, to be more interactive. Well, you know, there's no reason why all of these components can't have a little status symbol, and it would be like overheat warning. Is it getting power? You know, and the light could literally be. I mean, like I don't need to tell you, right? If there's no light on the power display, is it getting power? If it's green, is it getting power? If it's amber, is it getting power? Right? And the answer is no, yes, probably not enough. Right? And but you can see that, and then you go, okay, well, I need to find out where it's. Oh shit, the relay's out, or there's some damage to the power, you know, inlet on the thing. They could make it a lot more interactive, and I really like the, you know, that kind of conversation of, the starboard shield generators showing a warning, go check it, and then you know, then the engineering dude runs off and finds it and, you know, tries to solve what the problem is, rather than just do the shield generator, run up, done. Do the power plant, done, because that's going to be dull. But yeah, absolutely. Mad Teapot, good to see you, buddy. Welcome in, shippers. Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to catch up with where we are. But yes, so obviously being able to put other components in and stuff, or some sort of module. I also still want, I don't care what they say, I still want the components to have some circuit boards that you can pull out, look for damage, slot back in, pull out, look for damage, slot back in. And as long as you don't remove it for like ever, it still functions. But you see one and there's a visual indication of damage, you now need to go a copy of that circuit board. And maybe there's three, right? Maybe it's like a control circuit board, there's a distribution circuit board, and there's a program circuit board, whatever the hell you want to call it, right? But it means that there's a manual element of going and having a look, putting that bin, taking it out, turning it over and inspecting it, putting that back in. I think that would be quite cool. I just don't want it to be as fully Beam Citizen as it appears like it is at the moment. But yeah, so just to show you what I'm talking about, you've got these bits above my head, right? So what it's saying there is it's power plant left warning, power plant right problem detected, cooler left disabled. Which is cool. Because problem detected is like, go and have a look at it. Not, I'm going to give you the answer so you can go straight to do this or straight to do that. So that'll be cool. The big worry is the test version we've got this with the relays, they were way too easy to destroy. Yeah, so I don't know if anyone noticed this, and thanks to Shadowgirl for pointing this out. I'm just going to see if I can find it. What was quite interesting in part of this was where they started talking about damage, they start talking about armor as a component, and I don't know if anyone noticed it. I talked to a few people in Discord today, and they didn't spot it, which is that it's round about the point where here we go. So they talk about this being a simplified damage model, right? So basically, you have armor on the ship. I'm just going to pause this at the right point. It's a freelancer taking fire. Give it a second. Pause. Hold. Hold. Here we go. Right. So give it a second. So there's going to be two parts to this. The first is that your weapon has a penetration value, right? All of them have a weapon penetration value, right? Sorry, 2 seconds. So it's just so everything has a penetration value. Great. Also, the armor will mitigate that penetration value. So you're not getting the full value of that value. You're not getting the full effect of that value, the full value of the value, the full effect of that value until the armor reaches 0. Right? So as your armor's at 100%, it's not going to work as well. What I want you to do is, you can see here the very top part of the component. The component reads Freelancer ship armor, and as it's being shot, watch the value on the right hand side here in the green that says 51%. As he's being hit, that's now been destroyed, right? Now, at the moment, that looks to be a generic health pool, right? I'm just going to keep that running. But at the moment, that appears to be a generic health pool. So it doesn't matter where you shoot. I could shoot the wingtip, and as long as that wing stays attached, I'm still depleting the armor of the entire ship. I can then go shoot you in the underbelly, and you've got no armor, right? Obviously, this is a tier 0 interaction, but that's that. And then obviously, as that chance goes up, basically what they're going to do at the moment is they're mathematically going to do it. So they're going to go, okay, you've got a, your penetration value is 1 in every 10 rounds go through the hull. However, the effect of that is reduced by 10 at 100%. So now only 1 in every 100 rounds is going through the hull, for example. Right? And then ballistics will obviously have a higher base penetration value, but they will do less overall damage to armor. Whereas the lasers, energy weapons, that aren't distortion, will have a lower base penetration value, but do higher overall damage to armor. So you're basically going to use the armor, and it makes sense, right? Lasers to heat the metal up and make it basically slough off. And then once you've removed the armor for that area, ballistic rounds to go then and start hitting stuff inside. At the moment, it's going to be very generic. It looks like they're building this up to become a location based, armor based. So if you keep shooting the same spot and you remove the armor in that spot, great. If you then go to the other side and there's armor, it's over. But that's not what we're getting with the first iteration. So that's looking quite cool, because then it means that you keep one of those little salvage canisters of RMC, you can go back up and patch your hull back up again, which is kind of cool. Yeah, these things I really kind of like that. I think that's kind of a neat little taste. Drake warning, duct tape urgently. Yeah, if it's Drake, you just die, right? But now we'll need to buy the O300 to read the ship's trouble codes. Yes, 100%. Yeah. Cheap at only $45, the operating manual for your ship. And if you have lots of ship, that's a lot of $45. Lol. But yeah. So Badger holding the line. Yeah, exactly that. The timeline. Yeah. The party line, mate, it feels like sometimes. Imagine a universe where light fighters won't be able to solo larger ships as social. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be interesting, right? Is that if, as a Perseus, you know that you've lost armor on a certain section, you take a big hit, right? You take a couple of really big missiles. It also changes the view of missiles, because now it's a case of we need to down the shields, and then I hit it with missiles, and then I note where I hit it with missiles, because maybe I can then use that weakened armor to start penetrating the hull, and all of a sudden combat's getting more tactical, because now the Perseus is like, I need to keep stuff away from my starboard side, because that's where my weakest armor is. And yeah, it starts to get really, really exciting, this sort of stuff. I also quite like the fact that at the bottom it's got symbols for doors and power and all that. It's cool. I like it. I think this is a really positive change. Fighter Mafia riot from the insinuation that they aren't capable of killing everything while avoiding all fire. Boo-hoo. So what? People panicking for tier 3 plus ships. I don't see why. This makes big ships more survivable in the long run, right? And I'm not saying, before anyone shouts at me, that they're going to get the iteration right from the outset. There is likely going to be a period where big ships feel it even worse than they are already at the moment. But in the long run, it means that you can run around. Because now your ship isn't operating on one big health pool. Now it's the health pool of individual components. So you're not just going to go bam, boom, unless something big happens, right? You get hit by a torp or something like that, right? Now it's going to be a case of, for the bigger ships, you're going to start to lose systems, but your engineers are going to go running out, and they're going to go and they're going to heal these things. Whereas, as fighters, you need to make sure you're still capable of running away. You need to get away. You need to get out of your ship. You need to make sure you brought the right kit, because I can't see you having, later on down the line, the access to everything. You're not going to be flying with a backpack. You've only got potentially a pistol slot and something else. You've got contending for that. Pistols are contending for the slot. You've got knives contending for the slot. You've got utility devices. You've got the mini salvage device. You've got the med gun. And then people go, well, why would you bring the med attachment for the thingy gun? I think it's because you're going to have to bring. Then there's no doubt going to be a repair tool, which is better. And you're going to have whatever's on your armor plus whatever fits in the weapon rack. And thinking about the Gladius, that's not a lot. right? So now you're really having to select what you need. You get out, you pop that component up, which means you've got no early warning because you're not in the cockpit, there's no radar, you could have something really gnarly sneaking up on you, and you've got no idea till it kills you. And if they kill you, you're just going to be sat in space with your ass hanging out, hoping that no one decides to take a shot of opportunity. Whereas with a multi-crew ship, the chances are that even if they kill the device before you get to repair it, you're already on the way when it's deactivated so that you can repair it back up to strength. I genuinely think this is going to help multi-crew ships in the long run. I have faith. I like what I see. So yeah. Sorry, I've got to go fair way back up. So that's that. So once the armor is gone, all hits damage the hull and components. Not necessarily, no. So it doesn't need to all damage them. But basically what it's talking about is you've got armor and the hull are separate, right? Because armor can be depleted. Depleting the armor doesn't open the ship up to the void. So the hull will be separate. But things about soft death won't just be, oh, look, your hit points have reached 0, and we rolled the dice and the RNG god says soft death. That's not the case anymore. The other thing is that soft death doesn't mean soft death. Soft death will go away. It might still be used as a term, but because you'll be able to, under this system, repair things from 0 health up to a point. They're never going to be back to 100% without going to a station or replacing the component, but you can bring them back to life. So you can basically come out of a soft death with crew on board. So yeah, so multi-crew as a fighter, you got to get out as a multi-crew thing unless they can spare the firepower to kill you there and then. Nope. So yeah, so that's very cool. With armor, nothing damages the components. Then with no armor, the weapons have a chance to penetrate. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you hit something with a railgun, that's going through the hull, right? But yes. And the idea, hopefully, is that there is just going to be a point at which even the base value of the hull at higher ship levels is such that size 1, size 2s, maybe even size 3s are just not... They're never penetrating the hull. They can damage the hull, but they're never getting through to the components inside. You know, it doesn't make sense that the machine gun from a fighter plane in World War II could damage the side armor of a battleship, no matter how long you spent firing. You could park the battleship alongside, park the plane in front of it, and have a constant ammo feed. It's never getting through the armor. Never. And that makes sense for Star Citizen, and then, like you say, watch the fighter mafia lose their crap whilst, you know, they figure out that that's the case. Whilst the rest of us laugh. No. Yeah. So that's that. So yeah, so if your T3 or 4 module goes critical, you can't yeet the module. No, maybe you can shut it down, or maybe that is just a case of get out. The only way that that's going to be balanced, I think, is just to make that critical chance so minuscule that when it does happen, it's an event. It's not just like, oh, look, this is the second time it's melted down today. Like, it needs to be a case of, oh my god, we've got a critical reactor event. Maybe even the ability to vent them in larger ships, right? But yeah, as in to punt them out, like eject to the core and start in Star Trek. But yeah, you have the ultimate hull of your ship, says Shadow Girl, and it's supposed to be your armor. Eventually, it will be fully physicalized. It's always meant to have its own health. Yeah, although in theory, distortion might bypass armor entirely, so it'll be interesting to see if they make it combat. So distortions are going to be interesting. Distortions are going to overload certain systems. And that's the whole point of the charge drain feature that's also coming in 4. So if they overload your shield generators, you'll be able to run up with a multi-tool, assuming that it's from the multi-tool device, drain the device of power to bring the power back to a normal level to cancel the distortion effect. Again, you can't do that in a fighter without getting out of your ship. Multi-crew have that advantage, and so they should. So yeah. It seems like go vastly different directions with this. If your larger tier components get fully damaged, you can just go repair it. You don't need to eject anything. Yeah, unless it's that critical misfire that they're talking about. They were talking about the only way to do that is get it out, potentially repair it. Yeah, because they did talk about repair with that as well, didn't they? That you could repair it and that might stop the misfire. So yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah. So they did say. So let's go to that. Let's go to that critical point that they talked about, and I don't think I can pop the value on the volume on, because I've got to add a whole audio channel to OBS and stuff. But yes, I will put it in the Discord once I found the link, and I'll link it to you. But there is absolutely a bit where they say you can just repair it or carry it out and yeet it. So yeah. Wait, did you make it so that nav mode could have energy to shields? No, I don't think so. After watching this ISC, I'm glad I have a Liberator. I will have to spot a few replace opponents on my small ships. So many reply. Yes, that makes a massive difference, I think. The Liberator. I mean, we always knew this, but it starts to give the Liberator a bit more value than maybe I was willing to give it in the past, because the Liberator is not a carrier, you heathens. Okay, what else we got here? Sorry, just drinking a bit. No, I did that one. Avi says, I don't think so, but it looked like you made a power preset for nav mode and shields had a power bar. Yeah, I don't think they're doing that. I think potentially you'll be able to get the power back quicker if they do the battery thing that we saw, because that's the other thing I've not heard them talk about. They were talking about batteries, so when you've got like you've got an abundance of energy, you could charge batteries up that would give you temporary energy bars that you could assign to things, which is kind of cool, because then it's as the captain of a ship, you get to sit there and go, emergency power to shields, and drain the batteries. So that'll be cool. So when that power plant is exploding becomes not reversible hasn't been said. Well, yeah, I mean, they talked about getting out. I suppose as if you don't have a repair tool on you or whatever else, that there is another way of dealing it. Not carrying a repair tool doesn't mean instant death if a misfire occurs. So that makes sense. So yeah. Dark Matter. Hello. Welcome to the stream, bud. Yeah, good to see you. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up with chat and speak, and clearly can't do two things at once. So yeah, in the end, I think catastrophic death will be so rare because no one will want that. Not the crew inside, all those attacking. No, look, there's so much more value to be had by ships not just randomly exploding and taking everything with it, right? Being able to salvage components off your ship, it opens up off another ship. It opens up that whole. I'm going to live in space. I'm never going to go back to a station. I'm never going to go live with authority. I'm just going to go do my thing. Like that makes sense, right? Being able to go on ships and then not, knowing that there are a couple of people on board that are alive or dead or whatever. And the boarding stuff, that opens up new fun gameplay. Just having stuff randomly explode. There will be the chance, right? Torpedoes, missiles for fighters, that sort of stuff. Of course it will be there. But you've got to balance that with death of a spaceman. I don't think you can have random explodey death all the time. Looking at you, elevators. I mean, that's not explodey death, but it's still random death. This is the bit where he talks about it. So whatever that timestamp is, it's 6:20. So from the 6-minute mark, they start talking about this stuff. But yeah, so yeah, in the end, I think catastrophic death will be so rare. Yeah, absolutely. The limit is every time you repair it, cannot repair up. That's it. That's exactly it. So one of the things that they've said is that you just don't. You cannot repair anything that's reduced to zero. And I would imagine it's not just zero. It's not like you get to 1%, you can go back to 100%. It's like you can only repair 60% up from the lowest it gets to. So you get the 30%, you're only ever get it, or whatever. Insert arbitrary figure here. But yes, that is 100% where it is. So yeah. They seem to want the faults to be common as they're limiting them initially, which is a bit concerning, as they could get a lot worse, more common if they're artificially limited to start. Yeah, potentially. I think it'll be like anything. The number will change, whether it's more common and annoying and they lessen it, whether it doesn't happen enough and they want to increase it. I think there's also probably going to be two types of damage. There's going to be the damage that received either by being shot, fire, being bounced around, that sort of stuff. But there's also likely to be just like a wear over time. So even if you keep it repaired to 100% all the time, there's still going to be a case of this component's like a runtime thing. This component's been running now for 40 hours. It's now going to start to become less reliable. Yeah. So yeah. So that'll be good. The Liberator is my floating base of Socially Confused. Liberator and Carrier, and this shocks people, says Striker. Let's not go down the Liberator route. I just no. Wait, didn't you guys the Atlas repair? What? I'm losing. So I've lost something here. Chat shows me as my channel name, not my @name, lol, but that's okay. No, mate, welcome, mate. You know, as long as you're all right with it. If there's something else you'd like to call me, not Emperor, then you know, just let me in chat. But if you'd like me to call you something else, that's fine. But yeah, if you're happy with Dark Matter, I'm happy with Dark Matter. RNG ship salvage parts, SG level power creep, maybe. I don't know if it's power creep because, of course, you're only ever going to salvage stuff that was ever there in the first place. And then you're only, you know, it's only going to be the stuff that can fit. So, you know, you're not going to be able to stuff increasingly large components into the same size slot. So yeah, I think it's more of kind of like a survival mechanic, right? And I really like the idea of that having to, you know, almost like the Serenity, if people have watched Serenity and Firefly, just like that level of keeping stuff like going in the middle of absolutely, you know, bumblefuck nowhere. That'll be really cool. Like that. So yeah. Oh god. So yeah. Well, Atlas can have 2 utility arms, so expect salvage, etc. Yeah, I don't know what that left arm is. I don't know whether that left arm is what does the bounce, whether the tractor beam holds and then it just the other arm does a pulse. I don't know because there's so little explained about that platform. But yeah. Torsten talked about hydrogen types. Yeah, he did. So they talked about types of fuel. So they said that in future they're going to be able to add different types of fuel, which I think is probably going to be quality of fuel. So like when you go to a pump and there's your unleaded option and there's your premium unleaded, and there will be drawbacks. It's not just going to be a case of go for premium unleaded every time, because that's likely. Although it will probably be less of an impact on your power plant and your normal engines. It's probably going to damage your thrusters more because it burns hotter, so there's more wear, and they're always going to do that. And maybe, you know, like the cheap fuel, like the reconstituted stuff, you know, that they've just siphoned out in pyro, and it's like, hi, if you want to take a chance, have the lucky dip fuel over here. That's going to be like lower speeds, but it's the payoffs are going to be, it's going to be more ready available. It's going to be cheaper. So yeah. They've got a lot they can play with that, so that's kind of cool. Yeah, so players will have a competitive market depend on quality of products. Yeah, so I think the fuel's going to have a quality thing potentially, bearing in mind that's my guess, that's what the different types will be. There will be potentially quality on crafting. The question is how much they allow us to craft. I know they mentioned ships. I got a funny feeling they're going to backpedal on that because of the sheer level of fuckery that's going to be involved in letting players craft their own ships. So I think, you know, even if it's from a blueprint, not their own design, I think that's going to be rough. Mad Teapot says, I wonder what my Crucible will be able to repair and what I can charge for that service. Lots and lots, I think, is the answer to your question. Your Nova 42, your ship will need an oil change. No, I don't want to do any more oil changes. I don't want to do more oil changes in real life. I certainly don't want to do them in my hobby. Oil changes are rough. Don't like them. Don't worry. I don't want to wait for our lives to be over. Right, that's the only time you get to put song lyrics in, and I sing them. That's it. That's your lot. It was free. After that, you just join my OF. Good. Half a point in, he's talking about OF. Good stuff. So yeah, SWG had the best engineering. Yeah, the crafting stuff was great, but there was periods where people were crafting weapons and the combinations they put together broke the damn game. So they're gonna have to be careful with that sort of stuff. I need dirty fuel for my Reaver Reclaimer, 100%. Pyro fuel, absolutely. They had mentioned a while back, says Avi, if I recall, it was something with the Starfare about multiple fuel types. Yeah, 100%. Diesel, ethanol, aircraft highly refined and stuff like that. Yeah, because, you don't put unleaded in a jet plane. This is aviation grade stuff. Not just fuel, but resource. All items will be crafted, and no, they won't be. No, they won't backpedal. I mean, they've backpedaled on a few things already. In terms of all, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think there's a lot that they struggle to balance if everything's going to be crafted. And the reason I talk about backpedaling is they don't seem to have their heads on straight with what's going to go on with crafting, because there was a stage where they said there would be no crafting, which is challenging. But yeah, and then they started talking. Funny enough, the first inclination that we were going to get crafting in the game was a few years back, and they talked about, when they were talking about persistence, they talked about crash landing on a planet and then building yourself a little shelter and a campfire and being able to come back like 6 months, a year later, and finding the ruins, or the remains of that campsite. It was one of the examples they used, and they went, okay, so we can craft a shelter and we can craft a fire to keep temperature away, or keep the sun off us, try and keep warm, cool, whatever that planet requires. So that was the first hint that crafting was coming. And then, of course, outside of the Pioneer, they then started talking about base building and being able to craft ships and that sort of stuff. They don't seem to really have a fully fledged plan as to how that's going to look yet. And by fully fledged, I mean fully fledged by CIG standards, which is different. But yeah, efficiency versus power and such the quality thing. Yeah, potentially. I think that's the way you sell it. But yeah, Dave Horrocks, welcome in. Good to see you. Good to see you. Red Diesel, yeah, absolutely. Spent a lot of time in Northern Ireland dealing with that sort of stuff. Perhaps the fuel will get so much more dense and thus last longer. Normal hydrogen, yeah, absolutely. There's deuterium, which is have a heavier isotope of hydrogen. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of ways that I could do it. The quality thing was just a really easy one because we all, whether we know it or not, we all encounter it in real life every time we get into a vehicle. Diesel, unleaded, premium unleaded, super diesel, whatever it is. We all encounter that sort of stuff. Can says the problem with player built ships is it creates a problem with complete shadow player only economy, which can really break the game economy, as Star Wars Galaxies found out. Eve has intermittent economy issues with stuff like that. So yeah, it can be a bit of a problem. I'm talking about if the components deteriorate. Sorry, Nova. I missed the bit before that, but I assume that's not aimed at me. So yeah. Pyro fueled, powered by Soaking Green. Yeah, possibly Shinobi. Absolutely. CIG changing the plan. They would never do that, says Avi. Uh-huh. Yeah. Over time, there'll be like an... Oh, I see what you mean. Yes. Yeah. And that's going back to the point I said, I think there's going to be damage for the components, and then there's going to be wear and tear, right? You can meticulously maintain an engine, but after a while, it's still a 15-year-old engine. Things are still going to go wrong with higher frequency. And I think there'll be... I'm not saying, because they've not indicated that, I don't think for a second that's going to come in, but I think even if they've not got plans for it now, it's likely to tick over. And people are going to... CIG are going to figure that out. Major Star Stuff, welcome in, bud. Just please no Man's Sky level of crafting. Yeah, I think that's more than likely. I think kind of prefab buildings that you put down, and prefab makes a lot of sense in Star Travel, because if every building is some sort of prefabricated plan, then sure, you might have different variants from different manufacturers, but it's like a hab building from this manufacturer looks like this. You only ever need to manufacture one type of door for it. You only ever need to manufacture one type of window for it. You only ever need to manufacture one type of roof or one type of floor, and obviously a little bit more complicated than that. But that way, then you don't go to someone and go, "Yeah, I've got 7 spare doors, but none of them are the one that you want." Doesn't make sense. And this is why with military vehicles they do the same. Why a lot of military vehicles are based off the same hull, because if they all have the same engine, the same transmission, the same gearbox, you don't need to carry, if you've got 7 types of armored vehicle working in your op, you don't need to carry 7 types of engines, 7 types of gearbox, 7 types of transmission. You can just have one type, and then you just allocate it to whichever one breaks down. So there's a lot of precedent for that, and also it helps them because it simplifies everything. They're not having to maintain all these things and that sort of stuff. So I think that works, right? So yeah. Going through, I'll speak to you at CitizenCon if you're there. I am at CitizenCon. There's a few of us actually that are at CitizenCon. If you see us around, please come and say hi. Come and have a drink with us, whatever. We'll be at the Bar Citizen on the Friday night. Not sure what's happening Saturday night, Sunday night, but we will be there. We'll be there all day, obviously Saturday. I don't know yet. I do have a hoodie with this on, but I got it a long time ago, so it's not the best fit right now, as you can tell. So yeah, I might have it just wrapped around my waist so people can identify me. If they're like, is that the guy? I'm not sure. I don't know if it doesn't. He's not sat there staring at me with a set of headphones on, so I'm not quite sure. And then if people want to come up and say hi, that's great. But yeah. Monster Avy says, I'm kind of betting going to be more assembling rather than full crafting. Don't think we'll make a ship component from scratch, but we might assemble one from parts or something. Yeah, and this kind of helps with science, like the whole research lab, the Hadron Collider. If you can, let's say you're building a component, so you need aluminium and you need this, that, and the other. And everything sits in tiers, right? Because that's how games work. So you've got the basic crafting, and then you've got intermediate, and then you've got more advanced, and then you've got like the really high-end stuff. What would be really cool is you get some sort of, the science creates some sort of material, almost like a 5-use thing. So it's an expendable item that has a number of charges that allows you to go, do you know what? If you're crafting this, you can use 1 grade below what you need with this science thing. And then all of a sudden, science has a place in the universe. Science has a place. It's a viable gameplay loop. So they're researching these things. And it doesn't matter what they're researching. They're turning out these sorts of kind of almost, it's not a blueprint in and of itself, but it makes blueprints either, easier, cheaper in resource cost. It gives things slightly more durability, whatever it is, just spitballing off the top of my head here. But that instantly, science has a place, and that would be really cool. It will make science useful. I'm kind of betting, so that's what we said, yeah. So one thing you didn't mention, power equals generator burning fuel. You want to power everything, you're burning a lot of fuel and stressing out the engines. So yeah, because they're talking about the fuel indicator on the power plants, but that's not going to be in use in the first one, in the first iteration. So it is coming. We're not there yet. But yes, you are right. It will be, that's what your power plant's burning to supply power, as well as your engines. Same thing with ships, because if you make an Origin 890 versus a real 890, what's the difference in value, insurance components, and such? Possibly. Accidentally hit enter too soon, says Nova. Oh, okay. I see what you mean. I'm with you. Sorry, bud. Yeah. No, I get you now. Now I read it like that. That makes sense. I'm right there. So she confused says, I'll be interested if they apply a similar engineering UI for medical. I'd love this depth. Yeah, it's kind of interesting now, isn't it? And Tarkov does this. So you've got a ship made up of components. So Escape from Tarkov does the same thing. You don't have a health pool. Your chest has one, each arm has another, each leg has another, and your head has another. And you can bring them back from 0 at less than full strength. So if your one of your arms gets blacked, you can attach like a splint, and then you can heal it up, but it has like almost half the hit points of what you had before. But it means that you don't just go to 0, and then if you've got like they call it blacked, right? That when it goes to 0, the color goes black. And what happens is if you get shot there, what will happen is you take more damage. It basically increases the chance of insta-death. But it does make it more... It does make it more... In fact, it's not a splint, it's a surgery kit. You need a surgery kit to reconstitute them. You can also get breaks, which is what the splint is for. So yeah, Tarkov's quite good in that regard. And I think medical could go that way because once again, at the moment, it is Beam Citizen, although you do select what goes into the beam if you use the advanced settings. So yeah. Monster Avy says, I think you're not to cast aspersions on my future. The 870 jumps. Nice. Human crafted 870. We also don't need to spend 3 hours streaming in someone's patchwork outpost using every type of building and paint. And you are not wrong, sir. Exactly that. So one of the big questions for me about the ship large scale manufacturing. Yeah, I think being, if you think about the things that commonly get shot off, right? I think being able to craft replacement parts on an outpost would be great, because what you then enable people to do, even if that's quite resource intensive, you then become like a ship dealer. It's like, oh, go to so and so at that outpost because he crafts anvil parts, right? And then it means that you can go and live that in the wilderness style, cobbling your ship together from different parts, rather than, oh look, now I've got to go back to a station which is 3 jumps away because there's no stations in this system. It allows that wilderness living. I think that makes sense. But yeah. Also, science, I'm sure, will be used to help create one of those rare special components with installing into our ship's parts for bonuses. I expect they won't be replaced with insurance either. Yeah, they've also talked about things like the blades. There were military-style blades that you put into the computers that act like AI, and that that are no longer manufactured, but they were incredibly effective. And they've talked about there will be some of those scattered about, like, as exceptionally rare finds that you now obviously. But when it's destroyed, insurance can't just go, oh yeah, that thing they stopped making 20 years ago that no one can find anymore. Oh, you put an insurance claim, then we'll just magically make one appear out of nowhere and give it back to you because you insured it. You'll probably get some money for it, but you're not going to get another replacement component, not for the exceptionally rare stuff. But yeah, I think you're right on that. Good news, everyone. I've taught the toaster to feel love, says Star Stuff. Tier 3 scientist Drake Interplanetary. Yeah. Or the Drake Leviathan. Just cuts. Our scientists were so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to ask themselves whether they should. Socially confused. I'd love guild space docks, then we could go steal them. That escalated quickly. We went from love to theft in a very, very short space of time. But yes. Genuine anvil parts bought from the back of a caterpillar. Lol. But then, like, the caterpillar, if it does end up with modules, don't get angry at me, having a chop shop module, like, oh, you've stolen a ship, that has parts that I know I can sell. Just park it around the back. I'll deal with it. Right. Again, this whole really cool kind of gameplay loop can come out of that. Tier 0. General admin parts bought from the man for Caterpillar. I just said that. That being said, I take a rate placator like Star Trek. 500 cigarettes. Yeah. Drake Leviathan sounds like a prison ship. Yeah, Shady Face. I don't know if you've seen that. If no one's seen that, let me know, and I will do my level best to grab a quick video of it. If someone could link it to me, that would be great. But yeah, I'll see what I can find. Give me a second. Audio output capture. Oh God, where's the Drake Leviathan video, please? Desktop audio. Here we go. So I'll see if I can solve it. You haven't. It's worth watching. Where are you? Drake Leviathan. Star Citizen. Here we go. Is it? Yeah. Oh no, that's the Really? Have they dropped the original video? Because all I can find is DG's react to it. No, they can't have. Oh, sad face. We can always watch it with DG because he's on the other side of the screen to me, so we can always watch it on that. But yes, it is very, very. Has he got the original video linked? Oh yeah, it's this video isn't available anymore. Sad face. Okay, well, let's do it this way instead. Let's have a look, because this is genuinely a very, very funny video.
Great. Let's check it out.
Stand by. I just realised it hasn't actually added the... don't hide that in the mixer. There we go. Here we go. Right. Let's switch over. Transition. And go! You're at full volume.
The missile knows where it is at all times. It knows this because it knows where it isn't. By subtracting where it is from
Well, I know it looks like what you've...
This claim is ours. I'll make this easy for you. Leave now, or we kill you.
His reaction as well is brilliant. There's a reason he's wearing shades. He doesn't... There's a reason he's wearing shades. I can do this too. I'm with you, DG.
Our engineers were so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
I knew it was a Drake ship. I knew it was a Drake ship.
Introducing the Drake Leviathan.
This matchup is just brilliant.
Yeah, Drake! I love
Packing
this new
2.4
ship.
times 10 to the power of 32 watts of punch. The Drake Leviathan is the overkill your wallet has been waiting
$99,000. Yes! Sold!
It's time to atomize the enemy. The horse they rode in on. And the planet they were born on.
It's this bit. This.
Leave it to us to open Pandora's box. We've built something Douglas Adams couldn't think of if he fed him hot brownies. A spaceship so big, the space station's dock with you. Pirates, you can say goodbye to pirates. Nobody's going to rob something with its own gravitational pull. Cargo,
So funny.
you're carrying enough SCU to crash the stock market. Who will you sell it all to? We don't know. With 17 quadrillion cubic meters of spaceship,
Hey, excellent. Good to see you, bud.
lost it. You might forget where the bathroom is. But your 1.5 million crew will all be running to it after they see what the captain and his big red button can do. Why pick on someone your own size? You're piloting a moon with a gun in it. Every ship in the galaxy is your bitch.
Oh my god, dude. Bravo.
Drake Interplanetary.
Yes, yes.
Size matters.
That was absolutely.
So yeah, that's DG360. If you're wondering, he's a really good bloke. Lots of fun. Live streams a lot. But yeah, that was just a perfect video. I shall grab the link and link it, because unfortunately, like we said, the original link was removed. But should you want that video, I'll pop it in chat for you now. There we are. Yeah, just so much fun. But yeah. DG260's been under attack with copyright strikes. That's a shame. That's a shame. He's a good bloke, DG. That's a shame. He's not doing it through any kind of malicious intent, from what I know of him. But yeah, so that's that. Sorry, I missed a couple of messages at the top. Major Star Stuff says, at Mad Teapot, that's the third person mentioning Red Dwarf within 2 days. Guess I'll have to check it out. Absolutely. British TV comedy at its finest, Red Dwarf. It's great stuff. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The cat is confused as to what it is. 90% of CUGC info says nothing about modularity. Then people find older info on one or two throwaway comments and say it's 100% confirmed. Yeah, the only thing that's confirmed is that nothing is confirmed. But yeah. So yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you guys enjoyed that. That's well worth a watch. It's one of the really good Star Citizen videos out there. So yeah. Keeping up with the engine work will be challenging though. Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things. So, people early on in the game talked about, oh my god, it takes so long to get out of atmosphere, and like all the transit times are big. I think what they're doing is they're very much doing what, it's a bit of a poor comparison, but what Sea of Thieves does. The bailing out, the patching up your ship, the cooking of food, the catching of fish, the stocking everything up, making sure you've got what you need, sorting treasure out on board and making sure it's all stowed correctly, keeping those bloody gunpowder barrels away from anything that's important. It means going from A to B. You get to keep occupied, and I think CIG are going that way, as well as giving us lots of things to where good gameplay loops. It's also doing that whole something to keep you occupied, which I have no problem with that. I think it's going to be good. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's been a very, very good kind of release, the ISC one. I'm really pleased where they've gone with it. I think it works really well. It looks like it's going to work really well. It's going to balance quite nicely and all that sort of stuff. I'm here for all the people who want to solo their big ship's salty tears when engineering comes. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, right? There's going to be times when people are going to get frustrated. They're going to be soloing the ship. The power plant or the quantum drive takes damage, and the only way they can deal with it and get out of the situation they're in is get out of the chair and go to the power plant and repair it and leave the ship stopped or on autopilot in one direction and hope that they don't die before they do that, or something else doesn't get damaged critically. And the answer to that is, well, come on, at some point a ship's so big that just soloing it, you are accepting this risk when you do it. I think the flip side of that coin is that the other thing that's going to happen is fighters are going to find that there is a certain tier of ship above which they are just ineffectual, even if the ship's ignoring them. They struggle because they don't have the penetration value. The armor's too thick. They can't wear it down in any meaningful way. And they find out that fighters are not the be-all and end of the universe, which makes sense because it was modelling on a World War II scenario. Fighters and bombers weren't the be-all and end-all of maritime combat. So, yeah. That. X-Ray, good to see you, bud. Everyone say hi to X-Ray. X-Ray helped me out with the Atlas video. He found me an Atlas when we were in game. I went over to say to him. It was really nice because I kind of got there and half expected to get shot in the face. But no, X-Ray and Ninja were really nice to me. Lent me an Atlas for the video. So, yeah, thanks, dude, and welcome in. And yes, drinking with gaming problems, not drinkers with gambling problems. I've definitely said enough to get this stream demonetized. Oh well. But yeah, fantastic. Cat modularity isn't just one or two comments. Did a deep dive video on it. If you could link that to Zero, that would be great. I'd really enjoy watching that back, I think. They need to strike the balance between fun and a tedious time waste. Yeah, and I think, it's going to be one of those things that not everything's going to fail at the same time, even when you reclaim a ship, you bring the ship up for the first time, all the components start at zero. They're not going to start failing at the same time. That's the quality of component. That's how high performance it is. That's who manufactures it. A quantum drive that is neither here nor there, middle of the pack, is going to last probably a lot longer than the high performance ones because it's not high performance. So yeah, I wonder how repairing ships in combat will work, since certainly if the ship is moving, you're going flying inside the corridors. That's probably going to continue to happen. So it'll be like laying down or kneeling down to do that. But yes, that's likely, that inertial. I don't think it's balanced right yet. I think there are certain things, I think it's in mainly because they can show it off. I think that absolutely needs to happen when you've got size 9. If you've been hit by a size 9 torpedo and you're in, say, a hammerhead, if it doesn't blow you up, you should absolutely be thrown around inside, to the point where some people might encounter like a very low level injury. I think that works. But yeah, that's cool. Gambling, gaming, can't tell the difference. 100%. And therein is a whole generational trauma all in one. I hope we see 4.0 before CitizenCon 2025, says Can. Yeah, because if we don't, I'm done. 4.0 before the end of the year. I really wanted it before CitizenCon. That was my hope when someone asked me, kind of like end of last year, beginning of this. I can see it being right up to the wire to get out at the end of the year, if not beginning of next. I think it's just... I was hopeful that it was going to be quicker. I think it's not unfair now to say, do you know what? We'll leave it a bit. But, and I think until they demonstrate that they can get stuff out quicker, now that people are going from Squadron 42 onto Star Citizen development, I don't think it's unfair to say, do you know what? Until you start showing us you're getting stuff out quicker, we'll just expect it to be like normal. I don't think that's an unfair thing or an overly negative thing to say. I think that's just business as usual, right? Yeah. So there's that. Hoping they're adding mechanics in, and then they bring it back to fun. Yeah, I genuinely think that engineering gameplay is going to be good news. You hear it out first. Hey, Rolex, good to see you. Unfortunately, you've joined us at the end of the stream, buddy, but good to see you in. Thank you very much for popping by. It's an old video, circa around the... Wow, yeah, that is old. And of course, that might well change. The video CIG was pretty old, says AB. Yeah, absolutely. No way 4.0 is coming 2024, says Can. I only take them at their word. But yeah. I was hopeful, but kind of thinking it's going to be testing this year, but not out, so to speak. That's my feel, is that it'll end up in Evo Karting right at the end of the year, and they'll be like, oh, well, we did release it to Evo Karting. And then it'll be P2U Q1 next year. I'm quite happy to be surprised. Please, CIG, surprise me. But yeah. Crew requirements should be different depending on scenario. In combat, solo might be close to impossible. Flying from A to B while avoiding should be absolutely feasible. Yeah, 100%, Major. The thing there is that, that's the risk, right? Is that just flying it from A to B is fine. Because if I need to stop in middle of space and repair something, that's fine. It's whether or not you get caught up in combat. That's where you need the extra personnel. It also makes it very interesting because you look at something like the Connie, 4 crew, you've got the 3 in the cockpit, potentially 1 in the snub, 2, 1 top turret, 1 bottom turret for the Andromeda, 1 in the snub. That's all of your 4 crew. You need to lose some capability somewhere to go into engineering, and that's going to be slow because whoever's doing that is going to run up to the engineering console, look at the problems, go off and fix it, then come back and then look at the engineering console again. Has that fixed it? And so on and so forth. So yeah, there's going to be a point where you shift from we still need to fight to and now I need to think about survival. I need to get someone at the bottom turret, and now we have 2 people repairing, and so on and so forth. But this is going to be great. It's all going to be those player choices that allow you to decide, what to do. Yeah. Yes, absolutely, X-Ray. The 4.0 features, the caves, for example, have already been shifted into 324.2. So yeah, that's happening. Jay Grizz, my dad was a boiler operator during Vietnam, and he talked about using their belt to tie themselves to the ship in rough seas. Can confirm that, yeah. In beds, for example. So when it's really, really rough, people just go to their racks. Not because you being lazy, it's because you least chance of injury laying down, and you actually have your bed zips up into a bag in case you go into action, and there's 2 strips that clip it into the bed. And that way, then, if you're hit by a missile, everything's held into the bed. It doesn't end up on the floor. And then if you start taking water, you stick a pump in. What happens? All the bedding goes up into the pump gets clogged, you sink. So everything goes into these bedding bags and has clips over it. And what we used to do was, when it was really rough weather, you used to put yourself in your bed and you used to clip yourself in. You felt like a mental patient because you were just lying there clipped into your bed. You couldn't sleep. It wasn't comfortable. But even in rough weather, there are people that have known to have been thrown out of their bunks over the like roll bar that's on the side that stops you rolling out. There's people who've been thrown in out of bed over that, and they're 3 bunks up. So you've got to be really careful on board. So yeah, that sort of stuff, absolutely, yeah. And yeah, mad respect to your dad for his service. So yeah, okay. So I'm not going to get any further into the cat argument because that is just an argument. So yeah, is anyone else planning to bring a better set of combat components to swap out to lessen wear and tear? This is one of the interesting points, and we will visit that when I talk about engineering in a video, which I hope to have released on Friday of this week. So if you haven't, you know where the button is, so you don't miss that video. That's going to be us. I am running overtime, I've just realised, but it's been a pleasure talking to you all. We've had a lot to talk about, and I'm really glad I got to roll out that Leviathan video, because it's just so much fun. It's been great speaking to you all. You've been watching Drinkers with Gaming Problems. Thank you very much for stopping by. I'll see you soon. I only screwed the ending because I'm not actually getting out of here. Oh no. Let's try this one instead. Take care, guys.